Good afternoon and welcome to United TV. Today, we are pleased to welcome Melissa Gonville, Chief Executive Officer of YWCA Delaware. Melissa brings more than 26 years of business leadership experience, along with long-standing commitment to creating opportunities for women and underrepresented communities. Her relationship with YWCA of Delaware actually begins nearly 2 decades ago, eventually taking her from advocate to a board president and now the CEO. Today, she leads the organization, work to empower women, strengthen communities, and advance its mission of eliminating racism. Melissa, welcome back. How are you
Thank
doing?
you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
It's always good to have you. So now you are very comfortable with us anymore, right? So
I'm good.
all relaxed, good. So um, today we want to focus on one of the important issues that we have, the new initiative that we started uh, with your leadership, and I was very happy to be part of the Resilience Fund, and we are going to talk about that. But prior to that, many people, many Delawareans recognize the YWCA name. We get confused with YMCA a lot.
hmm
So, but they really don't fully understand how much this organization actually does. So, right now with YWCA, we are providing 24/7 support for survivors, safe housing, economic empowerment, youth services, um, and leadership development. And many times these services become most visible when a woman or a single or a family is going through one of the most difficult moments of their lives. So I want to start with my first question today. So before we get into the Resilience Fund, help our audience to understand what is really at stake here, because many people don't understand that. So what essential services does YWCA of Delaware provide and who relies on them?
Absolutely. I love talking about what YWCA Delaware does. At a high level, we provide multiple services that improve health, security, and safety for individuals and families across Delaware. So the first thing, and you mentioned some of these at a high level, we provide housing services. So we do emergency housing, which is up to 90 days, community housing, which is actually helping people stay in their homes or find apartments, as well as transitional housing, which is up to a year in our shelter. We also provide around the clock support for survivors of sexual assault, domestic
Mhm.
violence, and human trafficking, and that's in our Sexual Assault Response Center. We have economic empowerment programs. So we do things like financial coaching, home ownership counseling, foreclosure counseling. We also have workforce development programs, including things like digital literacy and soft skills. We have youth development programs. So we have youth programs that are for both middle school students and high school students, fostering leadership as well as self esteem and
Mhm.
confidence. And we also do community engagement and advocacy, really looking at the systemic aspect of what causes the issues that we're trying to address, and how do we advocate for better policies and systems. So overall, we provide support for families and individuals who are experiencing housing instability, violence, financial crisis, or economic uncertainty.
So we are seeing more working families struggling with the cost of housing, food, transportation, childcare. Last night we had our United Medical Providers meetings, and we have one of the policy representative from our Medicaid program just to explain the eligibility changes, requirements for patients with Medicaid.
Mhm.
And there are more and more um, uh, I guess, obstacles that patient needs to go through from the Medicaid side. And a lot of patients who may be part of our services, they may be receiving services from Medicaid. So the issue of the cut and the uh, what's available to the community is less and less every day. The problem is now we see this with just regular working families. They're struggling. Childcare, I don't know why it's so expensive. It is very, very expensive to a point where sometimes some mom with 2 kids doesn't like working or not working, between the childcare and then how much she's making, it's just easier not to work
Yeah.
and then not to pay the childcare. So that's just ridiculous. So, but this is the reality,
Yeah.
right? So we know that homelessness has increased, and both our offices are in downtown. Unfortunately, we see some of them firsthand.
Yep.
So we go out, we see people at the red lights or other places. We know that they're homeless. So this is becoming more about like who really needs some isolated, small group of people to bigger part of the community today. So my question is, what are you seeing across Delaware today that makes the work of YWCA Delaware more urgent than it was several years ago?
Yeah, I think we're seeing things in Delaware that we're seeing across the country as well. Um, Significant increases in rent and the cost of housing overall, as well as the cost of basic living expenses. Gas prices, we all know, are very high. Food prices have gotten higher. Um, Costs are going up. Families are being forced to choose between housing, childcare, as you mentioned, healthcare, food, and transportation. So those are extremely difficult choices to make. One thing you were talking about working families. So there's a growing what we call ALICE population in Delaware, and I think United Way coined that term. ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So those are individuals who are working full time, but
Mhm.
they're barely making ends meet. And the population in Delaware is close to 40% at this point of the Alice population, which is a lot higher than I would have
So Dan
expected.
Dan Cruz was here, I believe, a couple of weeks
Oh,
ago, and
and
then
Dan was
he,
probably
yeah,
talking about it.
he's part of United Way,
Yep, yep,
and he's running for the Senate. I think it's his re-election. So we didn't know anything about it before.
yep, yep. And he
So
and I have talked, and I've talked to
mhm,
Michelle Taylor of United Way as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a growing population, and I think a lot of times our services have often really focused on even people who are at the poverty level or below the poverty level, but we're also expanding to provide more services to the Alice
mhm,
population as well. These are full-time workers, and full-time workers are coming to us because market rate housing is unaffordable for many people right now. Strong demand continues for survivors of domestic violence and sexual
mhm,
assault. We're seeing that. And then older adults, people with disabilities, families experiencing medical or financial
mhm,
crises, they're also being affected by the increased costs
mhm.
and the Medicaid issues that you're talking
Yeah.
about. So we're seeing a lot more demand for services.
So prior to this one, this interview, so we did something a little bit different. We never done this before in the last 5, 6 years. We interviewed one of the clients of YWCA of Delaware, and I am going to play small clips from the interview. Actual interview footage was 45 minutes,
Yeah.
so we'll probably see her for 4 minutes or five. But there's a reason we wanted to actually do this to make sure that people who are watching this really understand what this is about. So when we are kind of trying to see what type of new phone we are trying to get, what kind of new car we are trying to get, what type of landscape in the new house that we want. There is a real struggle that's happening, and and I always believe that peaceful community is just like the base of that, the foundation of that is, especially in the United States, which one of the things that we do really good is the organizations like YWCA of Delaware. So I am gonna play this clip. My team is helping with that. So um, we have Tokira. She's gonna be with us on this, and she is gonna. We're gonna share part of her story, and we'll talk over that.
That's great.
I knew it was going to be peace. From the first two shelters I went to, the first one, they both were 30 days. And to know that I had more than 30 days to try to get myself together in occupied housing, it was it was a relief. It was a refresher that I had time and not 4 weeks is coming up just like that and I gotta find somewhere else for me and my child to go. So Yeah, it felt good. It felt good. It wasn't great because nobody wants to be in a shelter, but it felt good knowing that I had some time and had stability. I knew it was going to be peace.
So, for those who are watching us, what Tukina explains that arriving at YWCA give her more than um, another short-term placement. It gave her the time to breathe, um, regain stability, and begin working towards permanent housing. And that's probably one of the best. What probably differentiates us from any other nonprofits is this is transitional, where we are helping those who need the most help at the time that they need, they need the most help. So, but it's not permanent. So this is, that's also like why I'm actually with YWCA for this long. So that was one of the main, I believe, qualities that we have. So. When she was asking for enough time and enough stability to do the hard work of rebuilding, um, why is that time so important? And how could a sudden loss of funding disrupt the process of the family, like Takira's is really making?
Yeah, families
It's
really
already
need
making.
time to overcome the obstacles
Mhm.
that they're facing when they come to our shelter. So they need time to address employment. They have need time to address their budgeting and their finances, childcare, housing, and they're often doing this while dealing with significant trauma. So short-term programs may end and probably do end before families have
Mhm.
actually reached stability. It's really important to have that time. And I was thinking about this when I was watching the video about how quick 30 days goes by. Because I
Yep.
remember last weekend I was like, I can't believe it's August. Like, where did July go? Where did those
Right.
30 days go? So you think about how quickly time passes for us. Think about trying to get your life together and trying to find housing and employment and childcare. It just time is really important to achieve that stability. So losing a program or the capacity to provide those clients services for longer than 30 days could really set them back and not allow them to become stable. I think, that's why we have the YWCA Delaware Resilience Fund. It's really designed to protect that continuity and make sure that any cuts to funding doesn't stop us from helping clients like Takira to reach their goals.
So we wanted to have this specific episode focusing on the Resilience Fund. And many people, we did communicate with not just with our friends, but with our patients. Almost 55,000 emails went out from United Medical ACO,
Yeah.
and there are more. And we have other partnerships in the community, and Highmark Delaware is another one that's going to actually do something similar to what we did. We are trying to reach out to more people to help. But before we get to that, uh, I think it's important for people to understand nonprofit organizations serving underserved communities are facing significant financial uncertainty. And when you are relying on the donations, and some of them are coming from individuals and some of them are coming from corporations, and they are, if based on what's happening in the economy, they are not going to be the same. And when we are talking about federal cuts, we know that this is going to impact the organizations like YWCA, Brandywine Valley SPCA, Food Bank of Delaware. So uh, this is one of the core issues of organizations like YWCA. So we know about the housing issues, and these are all depending on the federal and the state level public fundings. Um, and when they are no longer there, we need to generate these from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And again, for the longevity of the organization, it's really important. So I really want people to think about why this is not because we hire like 5 more new employees to do the same work that we have. So
Yeah.
this is for the longevity of the organizations like YWCA. So, what funding changes or uncertainties led YWCA Delaware to conclude that a dedicated resilience fund was necessary?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to give you some context, we get our funding from the government. So we get federal, state, and local government grants, and we also get corporate and individual grants as well as in, individual fundraising. But a significant portion of those programs that I talked about, which were the housing program and the sexual assault response center, those are our two biggest programs. Over 80% of the funding comes from the government. So it's federal, it's state, it's local. So any funding reductions in government grants create big gaps in those programs. So we were actually fortunate enough to have ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan funding, for a few years. That actually ended this year for everyone, not just us. Also, we get a lot of funding from Housing and Urban Development for our housing programs, as well as VOCA funding, which is Victims of Crime Act funding for our Sexual Assault Response Center. And those services, that funding faces a lot of uncertainty right now. So we decided we could not wait until funding disappeared to decide how to keep our essential programs going. We serve a lot of clients. We serve over 8,000 clients last year. So we wanted to make sure that we could keep going. And the Resilience Fund is our proactive response to those potential funding cuts.
Because that's going to impact operations directly, and then there are already services in place. So
exactly, it'll
yeah.
impact services directly. And then the other thing is, if you have to scale back services or you have to cut them completely, it's extremely difficult and expensive to start from scratch. So we want to make sure that we're able to cover ourselves during those gaps so we can keep serving Delaware for a long time.
So housing, violence, and financial security, these things are important, and they're very closely connected.
Yep.
Right? Housing instability, domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking. Just because we don't see them in our kind of isolated, sheltered lives, that doesn't mean that this is not happening in different communities. So this is, again, people really need to pay attention. This is just, we are talking about individuals' lives, families, and little kids. Single mom, and single mom with more than one kid. And I remember one of the projects that we did together was the restrictions or the policy changes that we had. This was more than 10 years, almost 10, 11 years ago, where in those units that we have, the pull out, the
sofas, the pull-out sofas, yeah.
So if someone has two kids, now the federal policy change where you need to have a different type, I don't know, but we had to just replace them all. And we are also fighting with the policy coming from federal government in some cases, not just sometimes cutting the funds, but then how we are using them. And that's just making things more inefficient. Just an example of that. But this is a reality that we are dealing. So when you add all these issues, the loss of income, limited shelter capacity, and Delaware housing shortage, living in an unsafe environment can become more and more difficult, become even more difficult. So my question is, what is safe housing? Why is safe housing so central to helping survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking rebuild their lives?
Yeah, I mean, survivors are often, survivors are often forced to choose between homelessness and staying with an abuser. Escaping an unsafe situation can actually lead to lost income. It can lead to displacement, even eviction. We've seen people be evicted because of what's happening in their relationship. And those of us who have stable homes know that creates a foundation for stability. You need that home to find stable employment, to access counseling, to achieve financial independence. So they really go hand in hand. And that's why we actually, you can't separate survivor services and housing services. If you go to the YWCA and talk to some of our staff, they will tell you that in our sexual assault response center, there are a lot of people who are facing homelessness or housing instability. If you go to our housing programs, they will tell you that the vast majority of our housing clients either are currently experience sexual assault or domestic violence or have at some point in their life. So they really go hand in hand. You have to provide both services in order to help people achieve stability.
So this is time for me to bring Tokira back into the conversation. Providing someone with a safe place to stay is obviously essential. Um, Something that's granted, we take it for granted. That's not the reality for a lot of people. But rebuilding after homelessness often requires much more than just housing alone. Tokira told us some of the support she needed wasn't even something she recognized until the YWCA of Delaware made it available to her. So we are going to listen to her now.
What did the Y provide? They provided a lot. Someone to talk to. Some things that I didn't know that I needed was even like therapy. I thought I was fine, but I really needed therapy. So they provided therapy for us. I did therapy. I even put my son in therapy. I also participated in a lot of things like far as budgeting, and I'm still struggling with that. I'm still struggling with budgeting, but they had different programs. Miss Lisa had people come in and talk to us for different things, and we had options to participate until she said people didn't want to participate. And it's like, okay, this is good for you. So now it's mandatory. But I was already showing up because I knew it was something that can help me. So I wasn't missing it anyway. Anything that they had, I was the first one sitting in a room waiting to participate because I felt like anything that they were offering is something I can use at any point in my life.
So this is very clear to us that homelessness is not solved by simply providing somebody a bed or pullover sofa. Tokira and her son also needed counseling, financial education, and a plan for what would come next. And in those cases, that's the biggest uncertainty, and that's where we need the stability and predictability for those. And now, how does the Resilience Fund help protect the full network of services that surrounding housing, including counseling, financial education, employment support, and assistance for children?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is our staff is amazing. And everyone who comes into any of our programs goes through an intake process. So we look at what do they need, where are they now, and what do they need. So I love that Takira said, like, we offered her things that she didn't even know she needed because when people are in that place of trauma, they don't necessarily even know everything that they need. And we have very highly skilled case managers, counselors, et cetera, who can talk to people and figure out what they need and come up with an individualized plan for them. So we don't
Mhm.
come in and go, here's the standard set of services everyone has to get. We say, let's talk to you specifically and see what you need. So that is one thing that's very important. And things like Takira talked about counseling, budgeting, financial coaching, employment assistance. And that's in addition to providing them basics like food, clothing, school supplies, and bedding. So one of the things I will say is that flexible funding, like what we're campaigning for in the Resilience Fund, can help maintain services that our grants can't necessarily cover. So you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier about the couches, the
Right.
pull-out couches. Many people who aren't in the nonprofit world don't know that when you apply for a grant, you can only apply for specific things and you can only cover certain things. So for all of our services, we have to apply for multiple grants in order to be able to cover the services that we need. And there's still gaps. There's things that can't be covered by grants. So we need more unrestricted funding, such as what we get from raising money from individuals to be able to fill in the gaps for that.
So we also want our audience to really understand how this fund will work. So, and with the nonprofit organizations, as you know, with my you know background with Turkey, and then we still we have an office there, and there is some new stuff that just came out with these nonprofit organizations, how they are spending the funding. Um, a lot of issues they have, and we made a specific program in Turkish to explain and how actually like great examples we have here in this country, and the freedom, like you are the CEO of YWCA, but you are not going to just go and take money without the board's approval and the regular process that we have in place, policies, procedures. So it's not that kind of freedom
No.
that these organizations have. The one in Turkey, it was a really big deal, a lot of money, and the guy gambled
Oh,
with the
no.
money. So these things happens, right? So
Yeah.
that's why the trust also is really important.
Yep.
So why I personally get involved and my organization, United Medical, gets involved is because we trust the system, we trust the organizations. So, but for people to better understand, the resilience funds is being managed by the Delaware Community Foundation, and the funds can only be released if there's a YWCA Delaware board approves, and when there is a significant gap on the funding.
Yep.
So this is not just like free, like whatever you want to do type
Free
of
money.
stuff, and it shouldn't be like that anyway.
Yeah.
So, and that's important for people to recognize that. Not everyone knows, and honestly, I didn't know some of the issues nonprofits were going through, and why it's important to have certain savings and certain reserves, because these uh, funding changes, ups and downs are happening, and this is where you cannot predict. It's not like the regular business, so it's all relying on either the public fundings or individuals helping. So
Yep.
I wish there's a better way to predict, but maybe one of the things that I want to share with our people is, me personally, I want this to be our message, and I that's why I'm very open about my charity work, is because this should be promoted. So I'm not promoting myself by talking about these things that I'm doing with the organizations. My goal is to promote the organizations. So then there are more business men and women who can do similar things that I'm doing, and there are more individuals like our United Medical Aid. So we did. Uh, our team was at your office 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We did the paints, right? So how did they do a good
Beautiful
job?
paint. Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Some beautiful blue
So
paint
I
in Home
think
Life
Phil
Management
was
Center.
there, Ethan was there, right?
Was, yes.
Yeah. So and that is the culture that we are trying to build. So then this is not just a workplace. Like we just come and go. We want to actually have better connections to the place that we work with and places that we help. So these struggles from the CEO level, board level, it's just putting a lot of pressure. So and that's one of the again reasons that we are talking about this. But if you can just from the technical side, I'm like I have the freedom of just making it more broad. But if you can talk about how this is going to be used, from the how it's going to be operate, and what safeguards are in place to make sure that this money is used for specifically to protect essential services.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate, Kamal, not only that you're one of our founding circle members, but also the chair of our advisory committee for the Resilience Fund. And it's our longtime supporters that we wanted to make sure trusted what we were doing
Mhm.
with this resilience fund when we started this campaign. So we already have strong controls in place from a financial perspective. We have a finance committee that reviews our financials. And then we also bring our financials to the board on a quarterly basis. But as far as the resilience fund goes, as you mentioned, it's being managed by the Delaware Community Foundation, which has been serving the Delaware community for 40 years. The money is not going to be used on our day-to-day operating expenses. In fact, when we presented the budget to the board in June, it didn't include the resilience fund because that is
Mhm.
not for annual operating. We had to come with how are we going to meet our operating expenses without the resilience fund. So what will happen is that once, we have the fund in place, and if we have a major funding gap, so say one of our major federal grants falls through, I will go to the finance committee and say, hey, this is what funding has now gone away. This is where we have a gap. These are the essential services that need to be provided. We're going to, and I'm not necessarily going to go, we lost 200,000, we need 200,000. It'll be like, okay, but we need X amount in order to make sure we don't lose the basics. I'll go to the finance committee. They will hopefully approve it. And then once the finance committee approves, it also has to go to the full board, and they have to approve us taking money out of the resilience fund as well. So there's going to be strong controls around how this fund is used. And it's really, and the discussion we had with the board and before we started this campaign is that it's meant to protect against funding uncertainty. It's not meant to just to fund our annual operating expenses. That is, we have campaigns for that as well, but this is a very separate, special, focused on funding gaps and building stability for the future.
Yep. So we started with this resilience fund with the goal of 1.5 million, and that's by December 2026.
Actually, we extended it March of 2027.
2027. Yes, we
Yes.
got 3 months extension. I
Yeah.
thought that was for additional. So,
Yeah, no.
but that's fine. So it's going to be March 2027. The good news is we were able to raise almost half of it already, a little bit more than
A
half.
little more than half, yes.
And that's, that was great. And we were very happy to be part of it. When one of the things that, like we can talk about just regular question answer format, but I also want people to understand how we are processing these things. So when this came to me, like as you mentioned, like I've been working with your organization since 2012, I believe. So Eileen Donnelly
Was our board president at the time.
John
yes.
Donnelly is one of my executive directors here. That's when I met her, and that time I believe she was on the board, and she's still very involved right now.
Yep.
So, and she introduced us, and every year we try to be staying in touch with the organization, and we try different things with the breakfast, the annual breakfast that we have. We have a leadership circle for United Medical. All of our executive directors and directors are invited. So it's another thing that we do, and that was one thing. But then this was different. So when we first talked about it, we didn't have the advisor board yet, and because you know how I operate. So like by the time you say something, I'm already 3-4 steps ahead. So I'm thinking how I can actually, other than just financial means, what else I can do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so who is able to help from my friends and my doctors and my non-doctors, and immediately I engage them. So Dr. Jonah Gora from Seaford Internal Medicine, a wonderful lady and wonderful physician, she didn't even ask me to repeat what I was asking her. And not only financially, but also she's also part of the advisory board. And one of the other really important thing for me personally was the way that Highmark Delaware actually answered to this request, because it directly came from me. And the head of the Delaware operations of Highmark, the CEO of Delaware, is Tim Vessel, wonderful guy. And when I didn't, like, because we have, like with the doctor, I'm more comfortable, but with the insurance company, we have different issues or different service line or different things we do with them. Sometimes we fight. Sometimes we love each other. Sometimes we hate each other, right? So I never asked this before to any of the insurance companies. So then I'm like, I'm not going to lose anything. So all he can say is no, right? But no, he didn't ask. I didn't. I didn't have to repeat myself, and that was, that moment that you feel okay. The impact is not just what you can do financially, but the impact, influence that you have, connections that you have, uh, and then that would be up to the people once you reach out. So that's something that people really needs to do and understand when we are coming up with these projects and fundraisings. That's kind of like the key, and that's how it's actually came about.
Yeah.
So otherwise, we immediately have the board get together, and we have 3-4 meetings already. We have 2 events, so it's more than just charity. It's the culture. It is a good culture for people should adopt. That's one of the things that we are trying to do from our side. Um, so I cannot read that, Phil. So Phil is trying to show me something, but I couldn't read. It's just, okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I'll try. Show me again. We'll take it out.
That's the follow-up question here. She already answered the question.
Right.
Uh,
So I'm going to um, so the uh, when we have this process that started before you guys came to me, what was the process that you have, like the goal, and how you were planning? Like, how did we come up with the 1.5? So I just want to make sure that I explain from what we individuals can do from our side when these things comes up, and then the influences that we have. But you are the executive director, the CEO of this operation. So how do you make that decision? How do you set up that goal? And what preparation? I know Bat does a lot of things with you on this. So what was that process for you guys?
yeah, it wasn't easy to come up with what the goal was, to be honest with you, because the need could be so much greater than 1.5 million, but at the same time we said, well, what do we think is reasonable? So we actually had talked to, we took a major gifts intensive training, a bunch of us, both Beth and I, as well as a handful of our board members, and really talked to them about how do we best proceed, not only with the campaign but also with setting a goal around the campaign. So we looked at what our normal fundraising efforts are, what kind of major donor base we had, and then did some calculations and decided that 1.5 million was what we thought was reasonable and would help us to fill in the largest of the gaps if we lost a significant amount of funding. And I will say that we had a goal to reach about $750,000 by the end of February, and we slightly surpassed that goal at the end of February, and now we're actually at about 850 something thousand,
A little over
right
that,
around
yeah.
800. Actually, I think it's like 846. So we're more than halfway to the goal, and the amazing thing about that is we spent the first, I would say, 9 months. Our focus was on existing supporters and donors, so it wasn't a public effort. It was really going to people who knew us the best, and they stepped up. You stepped up. So many of our donors stepped up that we were able to get to just a little over 750,000 by the end of February, and now we've started to have these public events, and we're at about close to 850,000. But the thing that was important to us is that it really showed the trust and the faith that the people who know us the best had. So
Right,
they know us. They've been to our events. They've been to our home life
right.
management center. They've been to mission tours. They've talked to clients. They've talked to
Mhm.
staff. And those were the people who really stepped up to get us where we are now. So that made us feel like, okay, we can get there. We have their trust and their faith.
All right. So now we are gonna bring Takira. My production team is not happy with me. I don't know what's going on. Are we good? So funding supports housing, and it supports the program. So what's important is the people who build relationships with families, some of them during their most difficult moments of their lives. So for Takira, the encouragement she receives from YWCA staff helped her begin believing in herself again, and this is her story.
It meant a lot to me of them believing in me, knowing that I can do it because uh, at one point in time I broke. I felt like I broke, and it made me to know that someone you could spend so many years with can tear you down. And everything you have done could not mean anything to that person, make you feel low. Like to have them, because I didn't talk to my family like that. I didn't really tell them everything that was going on. They know bits and pieces. The main thing, I had to move out the house, but I kept a lot from them. I held it in, tried to stay strong, or cry in the bathroom. But being around her and Michelle was pushing me. She kept pushing me. And she was like, "You got this," even when I was stressing out over not having a job. I said, "I can't, Michelle." I was like, they provide and food for us and helping us and giving us what we need. But I was like, "Michelle, I need some money. I need money in my pockets. I'm not used to this." And she just was like, "You're going to get it. You're going to get it out." She said, "Don't stress." That's all she kept telling me. "You got this." She said, "Look at you. You got it." She said, "Look at Liam. When he first came in, he was shy." She said, "Now," she said, "he feels good. He feels comfortable." She said, "That's all you."
So, obviously, housing was critical, but there was more than what she needed. So, the housing wasn't the only thing that Takira needed. Now, we didn't force her to do this interview with us, right? So, she volunteered, and that's again another way of reaching out and helping others, because like if she doesn't share her story, like for people to really relate and understand what this is about, is going to be difficult. And she's already doing a lot of support and giving back to the community.
Yeah.
But one thing that Melissa, you would yeah, I mean, you deal with this every day, and I want people to also understand. So when we are in crisis, so this was one of the healthcare conference that I went to, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but one of the psychiatrists from Harvard, and he said, when we are in a crisis, our brain goes down to the basement,
Yeah.
and we cannot make decisions anymore. We cannot make good, healthy decisions. So we don't want people like Takira and other individuals who need this, other families who need the support. We don't want them to make this decision while they're in the basement. That stage is the part where they're going to probably make more mistakes if they don't have this support. Um, and all they need is to just to go through that just little bit, just very, short period of time with the right support. So this is not about, you know, giving permanent shelter to people. That's not what we are. And that's why this is also important when you are, if you are, please, if you're watching this, I want you to really hear me out. When people become permanent homeless, that's a big problem. And we don't want to have a society that relies on that. We want our society to be able to help itself during these crises, so these individuals and families don't make bigger mistakes. Because she's going to have, if she doesn't have this support and she doesn't have this place to go, then she's going to make one more major mistake before maybe it's too late.
Yeah.
And while she's going through this, she has a child.
Yeah.
That's like, I want you to, connect to this while you're watching it, because um, I believe that's our obligation to the society that we live in. And I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because you know, we're watching these little clips of Takira, and I had the privilege of watching the whole
Mhm.
interview, as well as seeing her speak at our breakfast last year. And she's amazing. She came in and she did everything she could. She took advantage of every service that she could, our economic empowerment programs, our counseling, budgeting, financing, financials, everything that she could. And when you listen to her talk, she talks about the the staff at the Home Life Management Center who helped her, and she kept calling them family, and that she just made a human connection with them, and she called them family. Her son got very comfortable at our Home Life Management Center. He was, you know, he was actually, she actually said at one point during the interview that he missed being there, that he missed running into Miss Shea's office, or talking to Miss Val. And so it was amazing to hear that, because you know, I'm starting to lose my train of thought, but you know, the staff, we have very experienced staff, and we also have staff members who have sometimes gone through what our clients have gone through, and that human connection that they make with clients like Takira is what helps them on the path to stability, because they understand what they're experiencing, and they know what supports they need to move them forward. I don't know if that answered your question,
It
because that was
does.
what came
It
to
does.
mind when
So,
I was.
and I being there several times, I remember two of them during the, I believe, um, one was lunchtime, one was, or both of them dinner maybe. So this is not like someone just doing something on their own while they're there. Let's say there's 20 families or 20 different individuals, or 10 families with 12 individuals. So they do things together.
Yep, yep,
So, and that probably is one of the biggest support that they can get from just the environment itself, just being there, that dynamic, that chemistry, that energy, and knowing that other people are going through the similar issues and they're there, and then they have the hope. But any of
she made friends there that she still
that's
is friends
exactly
with
so.
and
It
still
like
keeps in
I
touch
I
with.
mean
Yeah.
I did observe every time I'm there, I'm looking at the interactions with people, how they're interacting with each other, and it's more like a family format, let's say, and I'm sure they are missing that
Yeah.
when when they are when they're now on their permanent housing on their own.
Yeah.
So, but they can always come and help, right?
Yeah, and they
So,
do. And that's actually, I think already comes back to volunteer to some extent, and was saying that she's going to apply to a job for a job in a couple of years. So I love that.
so we have, I believe this is our last video from Tokira, and this is about uh, her path to permanent housing, and this was not simple. So she faced credit concerns, application denials, and several moments when another opportunity seemed like it might fall through. And she continued working through each barrier, and with support from you, your leadership, and your team. So let's watch what she has to say.
I said, "Is it okay for me to start packing?" And she smiled and she shook her head, yeah. And I literally broke down, broke down. My son was wiping my tears. He like, "Mom, you're just always crying." But I left, and everything just started being, I just started throwing stuff in boxes. They gave me the okay, and they said that housing authority should be giving me a call to come do whatever I had to do with them. I have to do it with housing authority too, because they were going to be the ones helping me with the rent. So I had to go and do all that, and then they told me, they said, "Hey, you're approved to move in now." And it took a few days because we had to, it was a lot truck and getting the moving truck and everything. So yeah, I moved in on the 29th, and just even doing a walkthrough. When I did a quick walkthrough. I called and asked, "Can I do it?" And just walking through, it just felt good. The neighborhood is beautiful.
So, as you can see, the moment of being in the permanent housing didn't just come through just one service. So, several different things: counseling, financial guidelines, advocacy, and staff members who continued working with Takira and her son. Time and other barrier and they were able to go through them. Now, is this what the Resilience Fund ultimately designed to protect?
It is. That is what it's designed to protect. So helping a client similar to Takira to get from homelessness to permanent housing takes a lot of different programs, interventions, services that we can provide. So funding stability is really what helps us stay with someone from when they first become homeless into permanent housing. And I mentioned earlier about the federal grants do so much for us, but we need to be able to fulfill all the services and really look at a client more holistically and provide everything they need. So yes, the Resilience Fund helps with that. And I will say one of the things that excites my staff the most is when someone goes from not having anywhere to go to having those keys to their own place, whether it be moving into a new apartment, or it's always amazing when they actually are able to buy a house too. So actually to have somebody go from homelessness to
Right.
buying a house is something that the staff celebrates every time somebody achieves that.
So the Resilience Fund isn't simply about maintaining programs, it's about sustaining programs that are already producing measurable results. YWCA Delaware sheltered 227 individuals and families. 187 families avoided eviction and secured housing. Every transitional housing client moved into permanent housing. 96% developed skills to live with greater self-sufficiency. Near 7,000 survivors received support, and 83% of the economic empowerment clients improved their financial health. I love numbers because the numbers don't lie, and that's the most measurable, and these are very impressive numbers. Now, when you look at these outcomes from the past year, what evidence give you confidence that investing in the Resilience Fund will produce meaningful, lasting results?
Yeah, you talked through the numbers, so I'm not going to talk numbers. We do publish our numbers that we've served and our outcomes on our website, and we do an annual report. But we do have at YWC Delaware a strong record of supporting measurable progress. Things like you mentioned transitions from temporary to permanent housing, families who avoid eviction or foreclosure, and how many we serve of those every year, improve financial health and increase self-sufficiency, all the thousands of survivors that we support. But more importantly, to me and to our staff is really those client stories. So I love that you had us interview Takira, and that you're having a video in here for people to really see that as we're having this conversation, because what we love to see is those client success stories. I just had a program review with all of my staff on Thursday, and it's like my favorite meeting of the quarter, because they come in and they talk about what they achieved, all the different measurements, but they also share success stories from every single program, and we all celebrate that. So it's just honestly it's the client success stories that really make me feel good about what we do, and should make people feel good about donating to the YW through the Resilience Fund.
So the Resilience Fund is a one-time special campaign designed to protect essential services during the period of significant uncertainty. We are almost halfway there, a little over halfway there, and the goal is 1.5 million by March 2027. So I go through not only all of my friends, but all of our patients. So hopefully they're not upset with me sending them emails, but we need to reach out to more people. So for somebody watching today who believes in this work, what would you ask them to go to? What did you ask them to do to help YWCA Delaware meet this moment and complete the Resilience Fund campaign?
Absolutely. The first thing I would say is contribute to the Resilience Fund. I would love to see more people do that. Every gift moves us closer to that final $1.5 million goal, and individuals, businesses, community organizations can all participate. I'm going to say the website a couple of times so people know. YWCADE.org is where you can learn more as well as contribute. You can also be an ambassador. So if you are listening to this and you say, oh my gosh, this friend of mine, this neighbor, this is something that they're passionate about, introduce them to the YWCA. We'll take it from there. The other thing I would say, people can attend a mission tour. And again, bring people with you that would care about the things that we're doing, whether it be housing, sexual assault and domestic violence response, economic empowerment, youth development. Bring them to see us, because it's the people who come to we hold mission tours at our Home Life Management Center in Wilmington, and people who come through those mission tours and really see the breadth of the services we provide.
Right.
And they see clients, they see staff, they see what we do. They tend to get more engaged in our programs and really understand what we do for the community. So come to a mission tour. The celebration breakfast is something that we do every year. This is separate from the Resilience Fund. It's how we raise money for annual operating expenses, but that is on October 7th at DuPont Country Club. The program starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, but we're doing something new this year. The doors open at 7:15, and we're doing something called the Story Exchange. So people can come in, go around the outside of the room that we're in, and there's going to be tables with YWCA staff members, volunteers, potentially some clients, pictures, storyboards, videos, all kinds of things that people can really immerse themselves in what YWCA does. So the Story Exchange, we're very excited about it. And I will give a shout out to Beth and Peggy, who came up with that idea and are
Absolutely.
executing on it.
They're great.
So I would say go to ywcade.org, get involved, and that is where you can find all the information.
And we have the QR code on screen, so they can also just
awesome.
do the QR code. And we are also sharing that from our social media pages, as well as from YWCA's pages. So, but on the screen right now, I see it, so they can just do that as well.
Excellent.
Well, this is always fun, but when I do this with my friends, it's even more fun. Well, thank you for sharing both your leadership journey and the important work of YWCA Delaware.
Thank you.
To everyone watching, thank you for joining us today for another episode of United TV. We hope today's conversations inspire you to learn more, to get involved, and to support the organizations working every day to make our communities stronger. Until the next week, stay united. Bye-bye.